Welcome to a live edition of the State of the Second. I've been getting a lot of emails and private messages asking us to do a State of the Second, and I have a very special guest here today, a good friend of mine, Erich Pratt from Gun Owners of America, and we're going to kind of give you guys a lowdown at what's going on at the federal level. Now, we may dive into some sidebar conversations about a few of the state issues, but due to time constraints, we're going to kind of talk about what's going on at the federal level. And so let's talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Erich. First of all, GOA kept its promise and decided to move forward with the bump stock ban once the regulations change hit the Federal Register, which was necessary, obviously, before filing a lawsuit. You can't sue for something that isn't actually a law or a regulation yet. So what's going on with that? And can you kind of bring us up to speed?
Absolutely. Well, we're really excited about this case. We've initiated the lawsuit in Western Michigan. So it's in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, which also happens to be a relatively pro-gun, actually very pro-gun district, and one where judges are very reticent to agencies that are overreaching. And that's exactly what we have here, Tim, as you know. That's some of the arguments that we're making in our complaint against the bump stock ban that ATF has put down. I mean, we point out that, look, this violates federal law and previous ATF rulings. I mean, it is saying that a piece of plastic is a machine gun and that it converts an AR-15 into a machine gun, which is just absolutely crazy. And so, our case makes a strong case that this is totally false. And so, yeah, I think that's one of the key issues. But even a greater problem, and I'm sure you hear this from time to time, Tim, I know we do, well, I don't really care about bump stocks, so what's the big deal? Well, I would say this, and listen carefully to this, because this is really important. The language in this ban is so incredibly broad. It threatens AR-15s, semi-automatic rifles, and many other, semi-autos in general. Because, current law says that a machine gun is a firearm when the trigger is held back, and bullets are discharged through the barrel. I mean, it's somewhat layman's terms. But now the ATF regs is saying that a bump stock can turn an AR-15 into a machine gun. Of course, that's totally crazy because with an AR-15, the trigger is still moving back and forth, one bullet for every pull of the trigger. But what happens under the next anti-gun administration? Let's say, God forbid, it's the Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders administration, right? Trump has already banned bump stocks, and yet there's other things out there on the market that can easily bump fire an AR-15, or to use the language of the ATF regs, there's other items that can easily convert an AR-15 into a machine gun. Things like rubber bands, belt loops, a fast finger. I mean, Tim, you've done videos showing this, right? So yes. If bump firing an AR-15 turns it into a machine gun, then according to these ATF regs, the next anti-gun administration is going to have a choice. Either they're going to ban rubber bands or they're going to ban AR-15s. Which do you think that they're going to choose? I mean, this is what is so pernicious and dangerous with these regs.
And to add to that, Erich, what they've done is set a legal precedent where they've done an end run around Congress. And basically, you have an agency rewriting law to get the end result that they want. So yes. We don't have our representation that we send to the Hill for this very purpose, voting and representing us. Now we have a faceless, nameless agency, quite honestly, that's not held to any accountability whatsoever. You remember when the IRS was screwing over conservatives under the Obama administration, and they just simply refused to go to the Hill and testify? They just gave the big middle finger to the entire American people. There's no accountability in these alphabet agencies. So that's why I almost wanted to have T-shirts printed. And I don't mean to insult people, but it's not about the stock, stupid. What's happening is we've allowed a bureaucracy to rewrite federal law to get the desired effect that they want, to ban something, to deprive people of their property that was legally purchased. We have ex post facto laws being violated, the Fourth Amendment being violated. We have, it's just unbelievable how far reaching this is, but it doesn't stop with bump stocks. The EPA, the FAA, the FCC, all the alphabet agencies are looking at this going, So we don't have to go to Congress to get these changes. We can make your car be required to get 50 miles to the gallon. We don't need Congress to make that happen. We'll just pass an amendment to how we interpret the law. It's incredibly dangerous, and that's what gun owners don't get. And that's what's been driving me nuts, is trying to pound that into people's heads. It's not about the stock. Forget the stocks even in the equation. We just allowed a bureaucracy with no oversight and no accountability to ban private property, take it away from you, and if you don't surrender it, even though you bought it legally, you're a felon and you're going to federal prison.
Well, and that's actually one of the arguments, as you know, that our case makes. You know, here you have roughly for 10 years, ATF saying it was legal to own a bump stock. And now, you know, they turn on a dime, they say it's illegal, and now you have to go to your local ATF office and turn it in with no compensation whatsoever. I mean, that's an unconstitutional takings. And so we make that point. You know, this is unconstitutional, it's illegal. And I think, as you pointed out, I mean, the ripple effects for other issues that we may be concerned about, from cars to, you know, whatever it is breathtaking when you consider that this could legitimize agencies just simply, you know, making things up out of whole cloth. You know, didn't we get upset when President Obama did that kind of stuff? I mean, that's precisely what we had a problem with, him doing an end around Congress. That's exactly what this is. And so I love your point. It's not only, you know, it's not really just about the bump stock. It's about the rule of law. It is about the Second Amendment. It's about your Fifth Amendment, right not to have life, liberty, or property taken from you without due process or without just compensation. I mean, there's so many things involved here that are at stake, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's a little bit overwhelming, and it's all predicated on the fact that a president decided one day that he decided that we're just going to take them away. And he went to Jeff Sessions and said, make them go away. He didn't go to Congress. He went to Jeff Sessions and said, make them go away. And they went away. And it just can't happen. Like you said, you know, you can't, if murder is not illegal today, Congress can't pass a law tomorrow making it illegal and then go back and charge you for a crime that wasn't illegal at the time that you committed it and send you to prison for it. That's a core fundamental principle to our government and our liberties. And yet here we have, you know, potentially our homes being entered because somebody says, oh, you posted a video with a bump stock 4 years ago. You must have it. Boom, my door gets kicked in. They come looking for a stock. And then you have the whole Fifth Amendment issue, like you brought up, where we're deprived of property. And it's just staggering. And it's so much larger than just the bump stock. And what if we get an Oprah Winfrey or an Elizabeth Warren or whatever as president, and we lose control? I'm not even a Republican, but, you know, as gun owners, most people associate Republicans as being the saviors of our Second Amendment rights, when in reality that they've done more damage than the Democrats, but that's not for lack of trying on the Democrats' part. But what happens when we get that Elizabeth Warren in there and she goes, you know what? Make 30-round magazines go away. This is ridiculous. And she goes to her AG and they make the same thing happen, just like it. And they have precedents now, right?
Exactly. They have precedent. They will be able to use these regulations handed to us by Trump through the ATF. They will have the regulations which already state that AR-15s are readily converted into machine guns. Why? Because they can be bump fired. And yeah, again, you know, we got rid of the bump stocks, but there's still other items out there that can assist you in bump firing them, in increasing the rate of fire. And so as a result, they've already got the reg. Now, I don't think Trump is going to use this to go after our AR-15s, but I truly think this is going to, if these regs are allowed to stand, this is the danger that we face with the next administration. It won't even have to be dealt with Congress. You know, that next Oprah Winfrey or Elizabeth Warren or whoever it is, they'll be able to use these regs to ban our AR-15s and any other semi-automatic rifle. This is really dangerous. I mean, when Nancy Pelosi said she certainly hoped that a bump stock ban would result in a slippery slope for more gun control, I don't think she even realized what a gravy train this thing was for the anti-gun movement. It is so going to empower them. That's why we have to nix this thing. And I'll tell you, Tim, I think we got a great case because, again, all the issues that we've just been talking about, the Sixth Circuit is known for, again, being very pro-gun and very reticent to see agencies overstep their bounds. And clearly that's, ATF said they're legal, and then they turned on a dime for political reasons and said, no, they're not. So I think we've got a very good case. We're very excited about our plaintiffs. Yours truly there being one of them. We're very happy to have you as a plaintiff, Tim. In fact, I would ask you the question, and maybe just a chance for you to share your heart with with your listeners and subscribers. I mean, obviously, this could come at some personal risk to you. And out of all the issues that are out there, why did you decide this is the one where you're going to jump on board and take on the federal government with us?
Well, first of all, you guys made it possible. So it's not very often that I get a phone call saying, do you want to be a plaintiff in a Second Amendment case? Now, granted, we're not really challenging this based on the Second Amendment. I want to make that part clear. But you guys contacted me and said, do you want to be part of this? And I'm itching to get in the fight any way I possibly can. I mean, it's one thing to sit on camera and say, call your congressman, call your senators, write your emails. And I do all those things. I make those phone calls and write those emails. But to have the opportunity to actually step up and say, I'm a bump stock owner and I don't want to give it up. I'm not giving it up. And I'm willing to go to court and fight for it. And yeah, I mean, the alphabet agencies could be sicked onto me. This is Trump's landmark legislation. He could have any one of his little alphabet agencies come and punish us. But then I always ask myself, I mean, right now I haven't been harassed in any way. I'm not already harassed. But I always ask myself, right? It's like, is this really that big of a deal? And to me, I look at what our founding fathers did. They wrote their names to a piece of paper. They were signing their own death warrants. That's what they were willing to do to stand up for liberty. Me joining a lawsuit is about this big, that big compared to what they did. It's the least I could do. And I'm so vocal and so adamant about it. Instead of just pounding my fist on the desk and saying, everybody else start writing your letters, I decided when you said, do you want to be part of this? Absolutely. I didn't. How long did I hesitate? It was like, yes.
I didn't even, right. There was no hesitation.
I just felt like, okay, this is my moment to actually be part of something that I've never had the opportunity to be part of before. And I think it's absolutely critical because of all the stuff that's been happening, since I've had a YouTube channel. And we fought some pretty nasty anti-gun laws under the Obama administration, we collectively as a community. And this is the only one that's really, landed in my lap and said, hey, do you want to be a part of this and be a plaintiff and go testify and, be part of this? And man, I was ecstatic. I didn't have any reservations whatsoever. I'm happy as hell to be part of it because I want it to stop and I want my name all over it, just like John Hancock. If I'm going to sign something on this, I'm going to write it as big as I can write it because I want Trump and Pelosi and Feinstein and Schumer and all the other idiots out there that want to deprive us of liberty. I want them to see my name. And so anyway, I guess that's why I wanted to do it. And I couldn't have done it without you guys coming to me and saying, do you want to be part of this? And so thank you for doing that and making that a possibility for me.
Well, absolutely. And, it's been wonderful having, we have our own Rachel Malone from Texas, who's also one of the plaintiffs. We have state groups that are jumping on board as well. VCDL in Virginia is one of the original plaintiffs, but then we've got other groups from New Hampshire to Alabama to Oregon, state groups that are just helping in terms of contributing. Tennessee and other states as well, where the groups are saying, hey, we want to help out as well. So it's been exciting to see just the groundswell that's happening.
And on that note, we've had a small victory so far. I mean, it's not a big one, but it's interesting, right? So to me, this small victory signals the fact that the court's taking this seriously. Can you tell us what that victory was?
Absolutely. So we're obviously in the middle of a government shutdown, and I realize when I say that word shutdown, it's really just a slowdown. But to use the common vernacular, we're in this shutdown, and so ATF goes to the court and they say, we're understaffed, under-resourced right now during the shutdown. So can we have a stay on the case? Can we delay the case? We immediately went to the judge and said, absolutely no way will we agree to that, because here's the problem. We're right in the middle of a 90-day turn-in. So, obviously we're well into it. So there's even less time than 90 days right now. So 90 days, by the end of those 90 days, every single bump stock in America, at least theoretically, if they haven't been lost in boating accidents, they need to be turned into the ATF, right, or destroyed in some way. So if this shutdown were to go beyond that 90-day period, and Trump has said, hey, we'll let this go for months or even years. And I don't think it'll go for years. I mean, what if it goes past that 90-day period? Then by default, the other side has already won. I mean, even if we win this case 2 or 3 years from now in court,
they're all gone.
They're already gone. That's right. So we've just won a moral victory of sorts. So we said absolutely no way, because what we're doing is we're actually asking for a preliminary injunction which stops the enforcement of the ban while we litigate the case. So we want to be able to have people hang on to their property, to their bump stocks, while this case could go on for it could go on for a couple years. In fact, that irritates Senator Dianne Feinstein. She immediately, in an op-ed, I think it was in the Washington Post, she said, hey guys, speaking to her colleagues, don't pop the champagne corks yet, because GOA is challenging this and it could be held up in the courts for years to come. Well, we can, we certainly hope that's the case. So anyway, that was a mini victory where the judge then came in, denied the government's motion, and said, no, this case is going to proceed. There's not going to be a stay on the case. So, hey, we'll take the little mini victories where they come. Yeah. Anyway, that's exciting.
And the government has to work without pay until they, get it resolved. So, I mean, that's really good news. And that to me tells me that the court is taking things seriously. And that hopefully means that hopefully we get that injunction. I think it's only reasonable we get the injunction until this is litigated, because, having hundreds of thousands of Americans become felons and destroy private property, and then 2 years from now, like you said, go, oh, okay, yeah, the court's going to decide, yep, that they overstepped their bounds, and this is not going to stand. We've already destroyed and turned them all in. So what's the point? Slide Fire's out of business. All those people are unemployed. And if we don't get this injunction, then for those of us that comply, we've destroyed them all. For those that don't, that do peaceful noncompliance, and which is something that I find very interesting. And I know you've seen this. We've seen, at the state level,
yes,
magazine bans. We've seen bump stock bans. We've seen, all sorts of bans. And over again, people are just not doing anything. They're not registering guns. They're not turning stuff in. And millions of citizens are doing what I advocate for, which is peaceful noncompliance. They can't put us all in prison. They don't have the resources to arrest us, to detain us, to feed us, to house us. So they don't know what to do. They wind up passing extensions because they're like, well, nobody turned anything in. So they pass an extension, like people are going to do it even if they extend it. Americans, stand up for your rights. Fight any way that you can. I'm not going to tell you to break the law, but I'm an advocate for peaceful noncompliance.
That's right. We'll applaud you when you do. Yeah, that's the record out of New Jersey with their magazine ban. Massive noncompliance. In fact, the last news I saw, not one magazine had been turned in. I don't know if that was an exaggeration, but not one magazine. Even in liberal states like New York and Connecticut, with their bans on, the so-called assault weapons, commonly owned firearms, obviously, massive non-compliance as well with registration. In Connecticut, I think it was as high as 95%. Yeah. So, in addition to that, I think it's really important. I love what's happening at the county level in Illinois, where 1 out of 4 counties have said we're a Second Amendment sanctuary. If you are breaking, a gun law, but it's a nonviolent one, like, like what we're talking about here. You have a magazine that's too large, but you haven't used it in a crime. We are not going to prosecute you, and we need to, I think, encourage that amongst the states around the country. That's very important, because that's for the practical part where most of the arrests and prosecutions are going to be, is at the local level. And so I love it when counties are doing that.
Take a look at what happened in Colorado when they passed their magazine ban. The sheriffs made a press conference. A number of sheriffs got together and said, "We are not enforcing this ban." And that's
it was
why
like 80 to 90% of the sheriffs there in Colorado. Yes. It's fantastic.
Yes, and they still scoff that law. They never cared. They blatantly violate that law. Now, I don't know if they've got it overturned yet or not, but at the time, people were just saying, "Screw it. I'm going to public ranges with my 30, 60 round drums." They didn't care, and nothing ever happened to anybody. And again, I always tell people, yes, focus on federal legislation, but do not turn your backs on state legislatures, and especially do not turn your backs on voting for your sheriff. Your sheriff is the most important and most powerful person in your state, and your sheriff can protect you. As we saw in Colorado, we have a sheriff here in Indiana that when they were talking about magazine bans, that sheriff put out videos showing people with 15-round magazines, how fast they could shoot 30 rounds versus a person with 3 10-round magazines, and there was a fraction of a second difference. Our sheriff in this state was putting out that information, and that sheriff would not enforce a magazine ban law. So vote for your sheriffs. I'm actively, when we have elections for our sheriffs around here, I am out, campaigning for that sheriff, my pro-gun sheriffs, because it's extremely important, because the federal government can pass any law they want. And how many states during the Obama administration said, if you pass one more law, any more restrictive than any laws on the books, we're not going to enforce them in the state. And if you send federal agents in here to enforce those laws, we're going to arrest your federal agents. Your state can stand up to the federal government, because that's the way this republic was founded. And we need the states to take back their power that's been usurped from the federal government. And we need to and vote in state legislators that understand they have that power.
Yes.
So when the federal government says, we're going to ban this, the state goes, good luck at enforcing it here, because we're going to arrest the agents you send. The states can stand up to the federal government. The county can stand up to the state and federal government. So think about that, folks. It's critical.
Yeah, we have a long history of that in this country. It was done pre-Civil War. With the Fugitive Slave Act, states in the North wouldn't prosecute violations, where people weren't returning slaves. And in many cases where there were prosecutions, juries weren't convicting, which, by the way, that's another important point. I think just to get the information out there, just the importance that people need to realize as potential jurors, the important power that you have. If you're on a case like, let's say, the Bernie Getz case from the 1980s, where he defends himself on the subway, shoots a couple perps there, in the subway, and they didn't even convict him on the use of force. It was simply the illegal gun that he had. And they convicted him on that charge. And I remember at the time, it was so sad. There were jurors in tears. They were crying because they didn't think that it was right that this guy who was just defending himself now had this conviction. And what they didn't realize was that as a juror, you can actually question the law. You can say, yep, he did violate the facts, but that's an unjust law. And so they could have voted to acquit. But many times judges and prosecutors won't tell the jury that. And in fact, there have even been cases where people try to tell juries, like passing out these citizen rule books where it just quotes founding fathers and quotes court cases, quotes what judges have said in the past. Our first Supreme Court Justice, John Jay, talked about this, the importance that jurors can question the law as well as the facts. And yet people who pass out information like that have been charged with jury tampering. I mean, it's so laughable. I mean, they're just quoting our history. But anyway, it's very important for people, so as because you're a voter, that means you're eligible for jury duty. And that's yet another way that we can combat these anti-gun laws, is if you're called to
don't convict.
Exactly. You vote don't convict. Yeah. He had that illegal bump stock in his house, but you know what? He was not hurting anybody with it. This is an unjust prosecution. I'm going to vote to acquit. You have that power.
And it only takes one juror to hang the jury.
That's right.
And so here's another one that's kind of interesting. So I don't know if you recall what happened in August of 1946, but this is why we have a Second Amendment, right? Athens, Tennessee.
Yes.
That's another example where Americans exercising their constitutional rights stopped ballot tampering and ended a just outright corruption within the local government. And it was a bunch of World War II veterans that overtook their National Guard armory, armed themselves, and then went and confiscated by force the ballot boxes from corrupt politicians so that they could have an honest election. And that is why we have a Second Amendment. And more recently, the Bundy Ranch. Now, the Bundys kind of went full stupid there towards the end, but the original confrontation was another example of why we have a Second Amendment. Americans stood up and said, no more. This is where we draw the line. And the federal government backed off, thank God, because that could have been a very nasty fight. But that's why we have a Second Amendment, folks. People say, oh, it's antiquated. It has no purpose. Really? Because in my lifetime, I watched it in full swing, and it actually did what it was supposed to do. And then one generation ago, it did exactly what it was supposed to do.
Absolutely.
The ultimate power of government rests in our hands because of the Second Amendment. But anyway, off that soapbox.
Yeah, well, just to add to that, I love what Condoleezza Rice, one of our former Secretary of States, said that, she talked about how during the Civil Rights Movement, her dad and other African Americans in the community would patrol their neighborhoods at night with their guns because the police in those southern police departments were looking the other way when the KKK was shooting up neighborhoods. And as soon as, people like her dad and others were able to shoot back, they're patrolling the neighborhoods and shooting back, the attacks stopped. This is
and that's
really
my lifetime. I was born in the 60s.
Lifetime. Absolutely, it is.
It's not that long ago, guys. And that's a perfect thank you for bringing that up. That's an even larger example of a community arming itself to defend itself because a government was turning a blind eye to gross infringements of rights to the point where firebombing churches was taking place. People were being lynched and killed and murdered. And the community had to stand and fight on its own. And if it wasn't for a Second Amendment, and let's face it, almost every gun control law that came about started right around the Civil War. And it was designed to keep African Americans disarmed because the white people were scared of the freed slaves, and they had every right to be. So let's not mince words here. Gun control is racism.
Yes.
So, and those Saturday night special laws. Oh, wait a minute. You have to be of a certain social class and they make so much money before you can afford to defend yourself. You're not to be able to buy a High Point or a Jennings because we can't have you, unfortunate poor people having firearms. So if you don't make enough money, you don't get your rights. Seriously, it's mind-numbing, and what's even more mind-numbing are the leftists in this country that support that nonsense. They claim that they want equal rights and everything for everybody else, but every single policy they back is discriminatory.
Yes.
Anyway. Soapbox, man, that's what I do. Okay, we got other stuff to talk about. We want to keep this to an hour, and we're 28 minutes in. Is there anything else you want to say on the subject, Eric?
Well, yeah, there's so much. I mean, there's other examples, and maybe we'll do that another time. But why don't we talk about some federal legislation?
Yeah, so we have, let's talk about the big one, because this is one we both agree is probably that presents the largest danger. Again, just like what Trump has pulled with Sessions and the ATF, this one's even worse. And nothing ground my gears more than watching Chris Cox. And I know you don't want to get into a fight with the NRA, but for me, watching his YouTube video saying the 5 million members of the NRA want risk protection orders, AKA red flag laws. And that is a very real thing right now. So we had Marco Rubio, Mr. I want to be president. I'm a conservative. I'm going to protect your gun rights. Once again, we have Republicans sticking it to the gun owners. And this is what this really drives me nuts about everybody going, Republicans are pro-gun, Democrats are anti-gun. Nonsense. Here's what happens. Gun owners go to sleep and we have a Republican in the White House. They don't care. They can't be motivated to do anything. They can't even pick up the phone to make a phone call. Trump will save us. Bush will save us. Really? Reagan and Bush screwed us over hardcore. And then as soon as we get a Democrat in office, they spring to life and they all want to go rally in front of their courthouses and state houses and stuff. We got to stop that. We got to get gun owners to realize the Republicans are going to screw you just as bad as the Democrats are. They're in cahoots. All right. So we got this red flag law nonsense. And explain to the audience what a red flag law is and why it's so stinking dangerous and why it's insane that any pro-gun group would support something like this.
This is very dangerous legislation. I'm glad you led off with this because, quite honestly, I think this is the biggest battle that we face. I mean, there's other gun control legislation that's out there that's being introduced. I think we're going to be able to, if fighting hard, we're going to be able to kill a lot of stuff. But this one that you're talking about, the red flag gun confiscation orders, is really dangerous, and it does have a lot of support. And you're right. I mean, even the president, with his statement, grab the guns first, then due process. That is really dangerous. See, okay, let me step back. Red flag gun confiscation orders throws due process out the window. Somebody who is close to you, maybe they have they're upset with you over something. I mean, those things happen where they launch false claims, but they can, make a statement that, hey, I think you're dangerous. And by the way, Judge, he has guns as well. Well, as a result of that, your guns can be taken from you. Now, in this country, so far, your rights can't be taken from you without due process. In other words, you have the right to a trial by jury. You have the right to face your accuser. You have the right to have your attorney present. None of those things apply with these gun confiscation orders. In fact, the first time you will ever know that a judge has issued a gun confiscation order against you is when they show up at your door to ransack your home and grab your guns. And we've already seen what's happened. In Maryland, a 60-year-old man named Gary Willis was asleep at night, and at 5:17 in the morning, there's loud banging on his door. So what do you do as a gun owner when there's loud banging on the door and you're a gun owner? You're going to answer the door with a gun in your hand, right? I mean, just for safety purposes. Well, he's dead as a result of that. I mean, this is very, very dangerous. I mean, it's one thing when you've been convicted of a violent crime, you lose your rights. I mean, that's even why we have the death penalty, right? You can lose your life if you take a life. I mean, but the point is you get convicted after a trial by jury. We were just talking about, juries and, they're the ones that they get the final say. Well, none of that applies here. And, unfortunately, wherever these gun confiscation orders exist, Fox did a study up in Washington State, in Seattle, where they have red flag gun confiscation orders. And in every case except for one, judges have issued them when they've been requested. Because see, no judge wants to be that judge that when somebody came to them and saying, well, I think Harry may be a little, dangerous, and oh, by the way, he's got guns. No judge wants to be that one that says, you really don't have there's no crime here. There's no evidence of anything here. They don't want to be that guy that then something, let's say, were to happen, then, that judge now is on the hook. So it even gets to the point, Tim, where you may remember with David Letterman, a woman in New Mexico got a temporary restraining order against him because she said he was sending her subliminal messages through the TV. I mean, it sounds crazy, but see, judges don't want to be that guy to say, oh, that's crazy. So right. They're going to side on, step onto the side of caution, and they'll issue the gun confiscation order or the temporary restraining order. And Tim, this is very dangerous because there's been, again, no trial by jury. You weren't able to face your accuser. Right. So this is going to be a real problem already. 13 states have passed this, but I tell you what, Rubio has now introduced this in the Senate. I do think this is going to be a battle, but I do
bipartisan support. It's bipartisan restrictions. Right.
But here's the way we fight it, Tim. First of all, as the grassroots, we need to have a loud outcry. Gun Owners of America was actually able to kill gun confiscation orders, these red flag laws in some of the states last year as a result of making a loud outcry. I remember hearing it was a delightful story where the House, the Speaker of the House in Pennsylvania had scheduled a vote for it. Well, after the loud outcry, he told one of the representatives that we were working with, a pro-gun representative, he said, I thought this was a non-controversial bill. Well, he pulled the bill from being voted on. So we won in Pennsylvania. Okay, so that, first of all, that's step one. GOA is going to be alerting our members, and we're talking to you about it, Tim, and we want your subscribers to make a big stink about this. We do not support red flag gun confiscation orders. So that's part one. Part two is you fight fire with fire. You don't look at this and say, okay, there's this red flag law. Let's just water it down a little bit. Let's just put in a couple protection here for, gun owners. Oh, we'll penalize the person if they bring a false claim against you. That sounds good on paper. It stinks in reality. In Oregon,
yeah, you still have to defend yourself,
among other things. But get this, in Oregon, this poor guy dated this gal for 4 months and then he broke it off. Well, this is the classic jilted lover. She launches false accusations against him that were just horrendous. He forced me into sex work, sex slavery, just things that, I don't even want to mention on here. Well, his place of employment was disgusted with him, said, man, this is gross. You're fired. He lived with 3 other guys. They were like, dude, you're disgusting. Get out of here. So he's kicked out of his home. He loses his job. Come to find out, the charges were false, and they were shown to be false. And so the prosecutor dropped the charges. So then the question was, are they going to charge the gal with making false claims, which is a crime? And
they never do.
They didn't do it. The prosecutor said, we don't want to discourage other legitimate people from coming forward. And if we were to charge her, then that might scare other legitimate. So they didn't charge her. So, Rubio has this provision about, penalties for people who bring false claims. Well, that doesn't work if the prosecutors aren't going to be charging because they don't want to scare off other people. So the point is, we're not going to win this by trying to water down the bill and make a bad bill, maybe not quite so bad. We win this by fighting fire with fire. We now have concealed carry reciprocity introduced in both chambers, and we're going to shove that down Nancy Pelosi's and Chuck Schumer's throat. If you're going to try to get anti-gun legislation passed, then you're going to have to swallow this. See, that's the true, Tim, that's how we won in 2013. People might ask themselves, back in 2013, after the tragic Sandy Hook tragedy, how come no gun control passed? I mean, there was, Obama was pushing for it. Biden was pushing for it. The media, massive.
NRA was negotiating.
Yes. It was a perfect storm against us. And the way we beat it, number one, was we mobilized the grassroots. But number two, we actually worked with McConnell's office to make sure that we could get a concealed carry reciprocity amendment offered. And as a result, that was the silver bullet that killed all gun control. That's why we were actually able to kill gun control in Harry Reid's chamber. I mean, the Democrats, the anti-gun Democrats controlled the Senate, and we were able to kill it in our weakest house. So it's a strategy that can work. We're going to fight fire with fire. We're coming up with all kinds of pro-gun amendments. Okay, you're going to bring up those anti-gun amendments? Well, you're going to have to swallow these. And, the thing we know is Chuck Schumer and Dianne Feinstein, they hate reciprocity so much. They hate people like you and me carrying guns for protection. Of course, it's okay for them to have their private security, but they don't want you and I carrying so much. They will even defeat their own and withdraw their own legislation. They've done it in the past, and so we see that as a key to victory. I'm not popping the champagne corks yet. This is going to be a long, drawn-out battle for the next 2 years. I just want to encourage people that with a lot of activism, we have a strategy where we think we can win this.
And I want to clarify, because I'm sure some folks are kind of wondering. I mean, you and I obviously know exactly what a risk protection order / red flag law is, and I just want to quickly touch upon what that is. So, in essence, you can have, like you said, a jilted lover, an ex-wife, a girlfriend, a coworker, a next-door neighbor. All they have to do is go into a star chamber court. Star chamber court meaning it's a judge and the accuser. In this country, we have a thing called a constitution. That constitution says we have a right to face our accuser. And we are, under the Fourth Amendment, we're protected against unreasonable search and seizures and, things like that. And we have a right to a jury trial. Okay, so somebody can't just come and say, he's a bad man, no jury, no anything, you go to jail. That's just, to most Americans, the concept of that is absolutely stomach churning, right? We believe in our court system. There's a process that has to be followed called due process before you can be denied rights, liberty, property, all that good stuff. It's a core principle to our republic. We do not live in a democracy, by the way. I get so PO'd when our own legislators say, and democracy goes on. It's like, really? Name one, buddy, because we don't live in it. But anyway, so, but that's a core principle to our republic. But now what a red flag order allows somebody to do, that let's say I go through a divorce, and let's say that I have something against my wife. Well, obviously I'm going through a divorce. I'm angry. So I go to a court, a star chamber. It's me and a judge, and I make accusations. I say, she's crazy. She owns guns. She's, threatened me multiple times. I watched her beat my children. She's just a bad person all the way around, and I'm really scared she's going to hurt me or my kids. The judge goes, okay, here we go. Hands it over to the court official, goes straight to the sheriff's department or the local jurisdiction police department, and they go straight to the house and take your guns away. Now, what do we have? We have, you're guilty. Now you get to go hire an attorney. You're not going to get a public defender. You get to go hire an attorney, and now you get to go to court and prove you're not bad. You're not a bad person, that you deserve your rights back. That flies in the face of all things that liberty stands for.
Yes, that's right.
You don't have somebody accuse you, an accuser. You don't even know who it is. When they come kick your door in looking for your stuff, you don't know why, you don't know who. And that brings me to the point that you brought up. That is a tremendous danger to Americans, because if somebody comes kicking on my door, I've done nothing. Somebody banging on my door, kicks my door in, whatever, it's going to meet with a violent response. I'm going to get killed. I may accidentally kill an innocent police officer. It's dangerous on both sides. I don't want innocent officers being killed trying to enforce this BS, and I don't want innocent Americans being killed trying to enforce this BS. It needs to go away. There's due process that needs to be followed. If you think somebody's a danger, take them to court and prove they're dangerous. This nonsense that Trump put forward, that the NRA's backing of, take the guns now, due process later. No, it doesn't work that way. And people, you better get motivated, because what Marco Rubio introduced is legislation to fund the states. It's not happening at the federal level. They're funding the states to pass them individually. Your state's going to be doing it to you. It's not happening at the federal level. So you need to get active in your local states to stop this stuff. But we can still defeat the bill at the federal level that would fund the states passing these BS laws and enforcing them.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, how this turns our system of justice on its head, because, it's ironic. That's a point that Rubio and other backers of his bill are pointing out, that, see, this provides due process because you can go to court to challenge the gun confiscation order. But as you pointed out, now you're proving that you're innocent, rather than what really our system of law does is it has to prove you guilty. And there's a huge difference between the two. It's much harder to go and prove that you are innocent. No, they have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that you're guilty. And so this totally turns our system of justice on its head. I mean, it's laughable. What they say is due process is like faux due process. It's really not due process. In fact, it's so bad. Yeah, the ACLU is not known for being, pro-gun and, coming to our aid. But this stuff is so bad, they've actually come out in opposition to these red flag laws. Because they're concerned about due process. See, I mean, so you got to give them credit for that. You know, they see the potential for how, you know, we can become a minority report type of country where you're being arrested, not for things that you've done and been, you know, go to jail for things that you've been convicted of doing. No, you can be arrested for something that you might do. And that's precisely what these gun confiscation orders are. I mean, you're not even being accused of a crime. It's just, hey, he makes me nervous. I think he's a danger to himself or others. And oh, by the way, Judge, he has guns.
Yep. And now you don't. And now you get to go hire an attorney for thousands of dollars, go to court, wait, and then and prove to a jury of your peers that you're not a complete lunatic. And like you said, how do you prove that? Right? I mean, all they got to do is they're going to stand up there and paint. You're going to have a prosecutor that wants to get reelected that's going to do everything in his power to make you look as bad as he possibly can. Did you make this Facebook post in, you know, May of 2006? You know what I mean? It's like it's so incredibly bad, and the fact that people aren't like rioting in the streets over this is mind-numbing, because once again, everybody is asleep thinking that Republicans are going to protect them, and it's Republicans doing this to you. So, with bipartisan support, but it was introduced by Marco Rubio, who is a Republican. All right, last but not least, I want to get some questions in here. We're 45 minutes in. One thing that we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up real quickly is the Feinstein did what she does just about every session of Congress. She introduced into the Senate a assault weapons ban. Yeah. So this time she's named some 205 firearms by name. There's restrictions on magazines, restrictions. There's going to be storage requirements. There's, let's see, when you go to transfer something, if you want to sell one, of course, you have to do the universal background check, and then the magazines can't be transferred with the firearm. So basically, if you own an old collectible firearm that has an oddball, like a Valmet rifle that only has a 30-round magazine, they never, well, they did make some 20-rounders, but you get my point, that only has one type of magazine. Well, you can transfer the gun, you just can't transfer the magazine that has over 10 rounds. So basically, you just get to buy a gun with no magazine, and that's pointless. So it's been introduced. What's your take on that, Eric?
Well, we're going to fight it tooth and nail, obviously. We'll rally the grassroots. We've fought these things at the state level. We've challenged them in court as well. So we have a long established track record in opposing this. And I don't want to put anybody to sleep or make anybody feel lackadaisical. Just as an encouragement, I don't think they're going to have the votes to pass it, but that doesn't mean that we ignore it either, because, you know, you go to sleep and then they slip stuff by you. So, you know, we need to have the grassroots telling their members of Congress, you know, senators and representatives, do not pass a ban on commonly owned firearms. And it's good to, you know, try to get away from calling them assault weapons, because, you know, there's no such thing.
It's a trigger word, right?
It is. That's right. Commonly owned firearms. I mean, that's what this is banning, and or would ban. And by the way, I'm in opposition, and they need to hear that. That'll be a reminder. I think we've got strong opposition against that, but that's not a message to say, don't worry about it, go to sleep. No, we definitely need to worry about it and watch it. But you know, I think, again, the more dangerous thing, the bigger fight is going to be with the red flag gun confiscation orders.
I absolutely agree on that point. And I just want to remind folks that are watching, I lived through the 94 assault weapons ban, as you did. And I remember the scuttlebutt around the gun counter. We didn't have social media back then. And everybody's saying, oh, man, don't worry about that. It'll never pass. No way. This is America. It's not going to happen. And then we all woke up one morning and it passed. So the moral of that story is, don't be that guy, that gal. Write the letter, make the phone call. It's the least you can do to preserve your liberty. Please write letters and make phone calls. I like phone calls because when you blow up the switchboards, they have to answer the phone. Emails, they can ignore. Eric, also, I know you guys are really good about of having contact forms on your website. So a lot of folks don't know how to write the letters. They don't know how to contact the representatives. You guys make that very easy for folks. Do you have anything that they can use to contact their representatives?
Not yet, but we will. And we absolutely do that for the very reason that you mentioned, because, you know, it's always easier to start with something. And we find that a lot of people like to edit. You know, it's editable. Is that a word? I think it is, right? Yeah,
I think it is. We'll go with it.
Or we just invented one anyway. But yeah, so people can edit if they want to make it stronger. Obviously, you need to keep it respectful. You don't want Secret Service showing up at your house. Keep it respectful. But, it's just important to let them know, I'm going to remember in November in terms of how you, how you act on this. And so, yeah, we will be providing for that. In fact, the best way so that people see it, if you're not already, please get on our email list. So go to gunowners.org and sign up for our email alerts. It's free. And then we will be alerting you to all these bills and more. In fact, we were talking about the case earlier, the bump stock case. If people want to get involved with that, they can either go to the site I just said or to gunowners.com if they want to get a tax deductible contribution. But that money will go towards helping us in this very expensive lawsuit that we have against the ATF. So two different ways that people can help out and basically partnering with us in fighting gun control all around the country.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man. We got a few questions here, and Jason's been diligently writing a few down. Has Jordan?
There hasn't been many.
There hasn't been a whole lot of questions,
but there's a lot of people that were talking about, Trump signs 2A bills to get the wall. Would he do that?
So,
considering there's a 2019 assault weapons ban, and Trump wants a wall.
Okay, so we are getting some questions. I kind of brought this up on our pre-broadcast chat. So some folks have asked, look, we have this government shutdown. We have a big battle between Trump and the Democrats, the incoming Democrats into the House that have the majority there now. And there's this stalemate. Trump just walked out of a meeting yesterday. He said, are we going to get a wall funding? No, bye, I'm out. So he's taking this very seriously, and he's looking for a negotiation point. He's looking for something he can give to them. He's trying Dreamers. He's trying all this other stuff. And Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer just aren't having anything to do with it. Now we have the introduction of this assault weapons bill. They're asking, what's the likelihood that Trump may say, okay, what if I give you 30-round magazines? Will you give me my border funding? What deal can we make here? Now, I do not trust the NRA in this, because they historically have done this countless times to make such deals, and then beg for money to undo it. What are the chances? Do you think, is it even feasible that there might be some sort of a negotiation, that this introduction of this assault weapons bill at this weird time, if it is weird, that there's some sort of negotiations that may be taking place, that, well, look, we really want this, and will you give us this for that, and we'll give you your money for your border wall?
Tim, we have lobbyists on the Hill, and when things like that start to come about, the good guys on the Hill, and there are some, they let us know. And so if anything like that, right now, hopefully that's only, conspiracy theory talk. But if something like that were to actually start being discussed, we'll know. Look, I'll want to come back on your show and sound the alarm, and we're going to be putting out alerts, and we will just, launch phone calls that'll just, drown.
Melt the switchboard.
Melt the switchboard, exactly. So,
good.
Right now, all to say, we're not picking up anything like that, but we'll definitely let you know if we do.
Okay, so there you guys know. Okay, so right now, not a major concern, but if something pops, you guys will know, and we'll get the message out. Any other?
One gentleman wanted to know, are form letters effective, or are they ignored?
So one question is, are form letters effective, or are they ignored? And by form letters, guys, let's say that people ask for somebody else, GOA or somebody else on the internet forum, to write a letter for them, and then all of a sudden they get hundreds of thousands of the exact same letter to your state and federal representatives. Are they effective, or they just get thrown in the garbage? You know how the Hill works better than I do. So what happens there?
And we've talked to people on the Hill about this. In fact, we have people in our office who work for us who have worked on the Hill. They are effective with one caveat, and that is that the person who is sending the form, whether it's a postcard or email, whatever, actually lives in the district. If you're sending it to people out of state, they could care less, and it's just delete, or they drop it in the waste bin. But if you are a voting person in the district, it doesn't matter that it's a form letter. The fact is, this is yet another person against the semi-auto ban. So they tally these things.
They can tally. That's my understanding. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you'll especially, obviously, Dianne Feinstein's not going to be tallying. She's the one who's bringing the legislation. You're not going to change her mind. But there are some, especially in the swing districts or swing states, who will tally. I think that's one reason why we've been so effective at keeping reducing the number of senators who actually support Feinstein's ban. It had enough votes to pass in 1994. Last time this came up in 2013, they only got 40 votes. And that's when Harry Reid was the majority leader. In other words, Democrat control in the Senate, they only got 40 votes. So
that's amazing.
And that's just from pounding grassroots saying, do not touch our Second Amendment protected rights. So, we're just going to, keep that up. But yeah, all that to say, it is effective as long as you're sending it to the people who represent you. The only exception to that is if you have somebody, let's say a senator who's running for president. In that case, then whether you're from Arkansas or Montana, that's still going to be a legitimate contact. But in 99% of the cases, please don't waste your time sending it to somebody out of your district or out of your state.
And I want people to know, because a lot of people think that the representatives simply don't care what they think. And I want to tell a story here. I've been in private conversations with senators and House members, and they asked me to have conversations with them in confidence. So I'm not going to give their names. So if you are a senator or a congressman that's watching this, you can contact me, and I will keep our conversations confidential. I will not mention names, but I just want people to know that I've had senators and congressmen from the Democratic side contact me, and we had extremely good conversations. All they wanted to do was pick my brain about my position on gun control. And at the end, they said, look, we can't say that we agree with everything and every point that you've made, but we greatly appreciate you taking the time because, the congressman or the senator, greatly appreciates the fact that you're willing to have, a rational, level-headed conversation with them to express the points of gun owners. So they do listen. I know for a fact they listen because they've reached out to me and I've had conversations with them, and I may not change their mind ultimately, right? It's like Dianne Feinstein. She's never reached out to me, so it wasn't her, okay? It wasn't Pelosi or Chucky Schumer either. But these are congressmen and senators that do care, because in the end, I don't think that they're all horribly corrupt. They are trying to do their jobs, and that's to represent the people. And they do want to hear both sides of the argument. So they might not always agree with us, but it's no different than going to a family dinner and you have an anti-gun relative. You're probably not going to change their mind over dinner, but at least if you can get them talking, better yet, you can get them to the range, you may start to make some inroads. Just don't be a ranting, raving lunatic, and they'll listen to you.
And let me make a comment about that. I'm glad you brought up that the personal visit, because obviously that is the most effective. There's kind of a spectrum, emails, postcards, phone calls, and then personal visits in terms of what's the most effective. And so certainly if you can do a personal visit, yeah, absolutely. That is the most effective. However, this gets back to the question, are these, form letters also effective? Yes, they are, because if you, obviously the personal visits takes a lot of time and effort on our part, so you're going to get fewer of them. So which is more effective, one personal visit or 100 emails saying oppose the Feinstein ban? The 100 emails or the 100 postcards saying oppose is actually going to carry more weight, especially if they're in the district, than that one personal visit. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's not much more effort just to pick up the phone and call. And you're right. When you melt the phone lines, man, I've been up on the Hill when we're just slamming them with phone calls, and you see just the irritation it starts with the people answering the phones, and then the LAs and the LDs that where the phone calls get transferred to, and all that bubbles up to the congressman or senator, and they see, wow, we're getting slammed with calls. So that can be very effective. And
I know it is.
Oh yeah, right before vote. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so you remember when Carbello introduced his ban right after the Vegas tragedy? I made a video, and he got so inundated with phone calls. It wasn't even from people within Florida. They were so inundated with phone calls. They reached out to my guys here at my shop. They said, the congressman would like to speak with Tim, and I just simply said, I'm not interested in talking to him. He's a turncoat and a traitor, and he didn't win election. He's gone. So they were so blown away by the sheer volume of phone calls that they were calling here to try to negotiate something with me to call off the wolves.
And that's the key, Tim.
I didn't want to call them off.
That's the one thing that is most important to a politician is votes and getting reelected. And so if we threaten that by a huge grassroots uprising, saying, we're going to remember in November, that can be very effective. And, having a scalp like that is not bad. A political scalp like that, to let others know, hey, if you go against the Second Amendment, the Constitution, violate your oath of office, this could happen to you as well. You could get your pink slip. That's a good message for them to hear.
Yep, I agree. Well, we are right up against the hour. We're 1 minute over. Is there anything else that you'd like to say, Eric, before we kind of wind down? Do we have any critical?
Sure. One last thing then.
There was a couple, a lot of people want to know in this, what's the GOA doing for Illinois? What's the GOA doing for California? What's the GOA doing for Oregon? It's all individual states.
Okay. So I want to just really quickly, if you could touch upon this, Eric, and then I'll let you get your final piece in, and then we'll sign off. And because I get this all the time, because people ask this of all the gun rights organizations, what are you doing in my states? Because look at what's happened in Washington. Look at what's happening in Virginia, where you are. Look at what's going on nationwide. I mean, we're just being inundated. So there's been a paradigm shift. There's been a shift of tactics by the anti-gunners. They've seen that they cannot get anything done at the federal level, so they've shifted gears and they're focusing all their money. All the billionaire anti-gunners are throwing money at states, not federal politicians, state politicians, and now they're starting to attack states. We're seeing states like Florida, the gunshine state, fall.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing what's getting passed nationwide, and people are asking, how's GOA helping in the different states? And if you could just speak a little bit to that, and then I'll let you make your final piece, and we'll sign off.
Absolutely. Well, we don't have a chapter in every state, but we are active in every state. And in states, we'll be working with local pro-gun, no-compromise groups. Typically, what you'll see is like in more pro-gun states, we're going to be emphasizing grassroots involvement, rallying the grassroots. In the more, really liberal anti-gun states, look, the grassroots, if we were to pour our entire budget into New York City, we're not going to move the needle at all. So as a result, we're still active. What we do is we'll take things to court. Right now, we have a brief before the Supreme Court. We're challenging New York City's premises license, which restricts who can possess a gun and where they can possess it. And so, we're challenging that. We've also challenged gun laws, other state gun laws, semi-auto bans, concealed carry restrictions in these liberal states. Heck, we won in D.C. with the Wren case. I mean, that's why Washington, D.C. right now is a shall issue jurisdiction. It's because of the Wren case that we were involved in. So we're involved in many different ways. Probably the biggest thing that we're doing right now for states like New York and Massachusetts and New Jersey and Hawaii, California, these just states where it just seems impossible, is we're pushing H.R. 38, concealed carry reciprocity. That bill, when that bill passes and becomes law, not only does it help those of us who have permits in our states that issue permits, not only does it help people from constitutional carry states, because now they can carry around the country without getting a permit, without permission. This is fantastic legislation, but it also helps people who are behind enemy lines, because now they're going to be able to get an out-of-state permit and carry in their home state. Even though their home state may not be shall issue, they'll still be able to get that Utah permit or the Florida permit and carry in their home state. So that's probably, just at the federal level, what we're doing to help people who are, really struggling. And by the way, we've got an alert on our website right now that pushing HR 38, the Concealed Carry Reciprocity Bill. So I encourage people, when you go to our website to sign up for email alerts, please click on that alert. And like Tim was saying earlier, we've got pre-written language. Change it if you want, make it stronger, whatever. But with 1 or 2 clicks of your mouse, you can send off that email to your representative. So please do that. That's at gunowners.org.
Eric, you're far too humble to do this, so I'm going to do it for you. Guys, if you want to see the GOA more active in more places, they need your financial support. Okay, so at Copper Custom, you make a purchase, you get a free 1-year membership at GOA, but that doesn't really help them as much as actually donating. I forget what the name of the program is, but I donate every month to GOA.
Think
about it. Yep, that's what I'm a part of. So every month I donate to GOA for what I spend in a Starbucks coffee every single morning. 1 Starbucks coffee. It's about 4 Starbucks coffees, but for what I spend on 4 Starbucks coffees, I can send to the GOA so GOA can fight in those states, guys. It takes a lot of money. This court case that we're fighting right now against the bump stocks, it could run out for a couple of years. And guys, that could get into the hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million. Okay. So they need money. And it's not a matter of like money's growing on trees for them. GOA is a very good sized organization, but they still need the funding. And so if you want to get GOA more involved in your states, please consider joining the GOA. Give them $20 a month, give them $20 a year, whatever you can afford. But that's how you're going to fund their ability to fight, because they can only fight with the resources they have. So they have to allocate those resources to where they think they can be most effective. So I knew you weren't going to say it, but I had to.
Well, I appreciate that, Tim, because really it is the average Joe, the average Jane that keeps us here on the front lines. We don't have a Bloomberg or a Soros that's bankrolling us. It's just average folks across the country that are passionate about preserving their rights, that keep us here on the front lines. And if you don't like what we're doing, you stop giving to us, you fire us. Ultimately, our desire here is to work ourselves out of a job, because we've repealed all the gun control on the books. Tim, you know me, right? I love teaching government to students, and I actually do that in my off hours. I'd love to do that full time, but I can't, because I got to be here protecting our rights, which we shouldn't have to be doing, but we've got to do it, and we want to do it without compromise. And we don't compromise when it says shall not be infringed in the Second Amendment. We believe that, we take it to heart, and we will not. When we fight legislation, we are not going to be compromising. Like I said earlier, we're going to fight fire with fire, bringing pro-gun bills and forcing Feinstein and Schumer to swallow hard. So anyway, that's what you get with GOA.
And that's why I support you guys, because I am sick of compromising. That is not a strategy. No. Compromising implies that both parties get something of equal value, and we've never compromised with our gun rights. We've surrendered them. And the strategy of giving bits and pieces of our rights away, hoping that the gun grabbers go away for a little while, is a long-term game that only makes them win, because in 100 years we have nothing left to give them, because they've taken it all away. So we've got to stop in and dig our heels in and fight. They've got enough. Now it's time for us to take it back. And they're going to start giving us something back, because we've been giving them everything for 100 years. Now it's got to go the other way. And it takes your activism watching this to do it. All right. So, guys, I think with that, we're just a little bit over an hour. Eric, is there anything that you want to say as a parting shot? No pun intended.
No, we're good. Just thanks to you, Tim. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for being a part of our bump stock case. It's already been so beneficial having you. You're a powerful spokesman. So, and I really mean that. So thank you so much for partnering with us.
Hey, I thank you for asking me to be a part of it. I mean, I couldn't believe I was getting the offer, and I'm so excited for it. And we'll keep you guys posted as that progresses. Our Patreons, I keep them apprised pretty much on a weekly basis as where things are going. And just here on YouTube and on Instagram, you just follow my posts. I mean, I'm posting pretty actively with the political stuff. So anyway, we're going to sign off, guys. Thank you for watching our live stream, State of the Second. If you guys would like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, the best way to do that is become a Patreon supporter. There will be a link down below. Go ahead and follow that link and check it out. And thanks for 11 years of support, and we will talk to you guys soon. Eric, thanks for joining us, my friend. It means a lot.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Keep up the good fight, my brother, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, very good. Look forward to it.
All right, bye-bye.